We want to start here today with a story that has become one of the biggest stories around the world. Certainly, one of the biggest touches on one of the biggest issues in the U.S. election. That's immigration. What's happening at the Texas border currently, and we are very, very honored for this conversation to be joined once again by Todd Miller, who's an author and journalist specializing in border issues. Todd, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you, Eugene. It's great to be with you again.
Well, great to have you here. And I guess my first question is, there's a lot of very potent headlines about what's happening in Texas. People saying there's another civil war coming. Nikki Haley saying today Texas can secede if they want to. So passions are obviously high, but maybe just give us a sense. What are the actual sort of legal issues at the border that have brought Texas state officials and the federal government into at least some state of conflict, it seems?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to this story, and I unfortunately it's getting churned through the kind of partisan media machine, right? But what's happening is that the Texas state government through what is called Operation Lone Star, um, which is a $4.5 billion operation that Texas started in 2021. Um, that operation is uh, is well, it's what happened was that it involves Texas police, state police, and National Guard, and they took over this small park in Eagle Pass, Texas. Um, and they took it over because they claimed that the U.S. Border Patrol was cutting the concertina wire and that razor wire, and they wanted to stop that. And so there's been a standoff ever since, that's been getting played up quite a bit in the media. Um, I want to, the I that's what's going on. My interpretation of this is that we're seeing what I would characterize as border theater. Border theater. Is it any coincidence that this is happening during an election year? I don't think so. Is it any coincidence that this is happening under the regime of Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who's all about securing the border and who is a big Donald Trump supporter? I don't think it is. Is it any coincidence this is happening while the kind of messaging from the right wing in the United States is that the border we have open borders, quote unquote open borders? No. Um, and so I think what we're seeing here and why I call it theater, because what is being created is this kind of part instead of what is really going on in the border, which we can definitely talk about. We're getting this kind of partisan clash. um or we have a governor who's trying to promote a message saying that there's an open border and we need to do something more about it, that's making a stand at the small park in Eagle Pass and against the federal government. And then we have the federal government who's in charge. The legal issue is that the federal government is in charge of border enforcement. And so this taking over of this small park is is a big challenge to that, maybe even an embarrassment to the federal government. So then we get this clash and the conflict. But one thing I wanted to say is that if you look at Operation Lone Star, again, it's been going on for 2 years now, um, across the state of Texas. This has not happened up to this point. Um, I regularly see Operation Lone Star in action with my own eyes in El Paso. And what you see is the state operation, the National Guard, the police working alongside and collaborating with the U.S. Border Patrol. And on top of that, the U.S. Border Patrol has collaborated or is collaborating with police departments, including state to police departments, all across the U.S. Mexico border in Arizona, New Mexico, and California as well. And that's been part of their enforcement fabric now for decades. And on top of that, the Border Patrol regularly works with National Guard. So we have what appears to be a conflict in one place, where in other places these forces are working in collaboration with each other. And so how this has been spun and I in the media has been quite alarming. Like I read from a more liberal point of view yesterday that they were calling, that this might be the quote unquote end of America. And I'm like, what? I mean, well, maybe that's a good idea, right? But it seems like everything just has reached a new level of hyperbole. And this hyperbole is just playing into, is really setting the stage, I think, of what we're going to see a lot of this year with the elections coming. A lot of this sort of thing, the sort of bravado of state governments, especially with Republican governors, versus the federal apparatus, which is also it's a very punitive, enforcement oriented, um, even brutalizing to migrants apparatus, um, as if they're in conflict with each other when in reality they've worked hand in hand over decades now.